I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of our investigation is the shocking execution of Judge Kevin Mullins by Sheriff Mickey Stines in Kentucky. It's a case involving much more than just this act of violence. There is also a complicated backstory involving a small community and allegations of the sextortion of female inmates. Here's the story. In the tense halls of Kentucky justice, Sheriff Mickey Stines and Judge Kevin Mullins became figures at the center of controversy, their names entwined in cases that gripped the bluegrass state. Stines, a lawman known for his hands-on approach, commanded attention with his relentless pursuit of criminals, his presence both feared and respected. Mullins, a judge of years-long experience, presided over volatile courtrooms, balancing law and human drama with a measured, deliberate hand. But then, everything changed on September 19th, 2024. That's when Mickey Stines shot the judge on camera inside his chambers. A moment that stunned the community and had the nation asking, why? The answer to that question is not yet known, but many wonder if it is somehow connected to the extortion of female inmates inside the judge's chambers, where they were forced to engage in sexual acts to stay out of jail. It cost one deputy his career and his freedom, but many wonder if others were involved. This story has many different layers. The alleged crime itself is right on video. We see it happen. Sheriff Mickey Stines shooting the judge. But so much of that seems to be connected to what else was happening in that courthouse and in that chambers. What I'm going to play for you is an interview with a woman named Taya Adams, who was on this program making allegations against the judge and others. Now, we have not independently confirmed or verified any of the allegations that she made, but those allegations are part of the story and part of the backdrop for what happened the day that the sheriff shot the judge. So I want you to take a listen to Taya Adams, again, on this program, talking about the victim, Judge Kevin Mullins, and also talking about the killer, the shooter, Sheriff Mickey Stines. So it was an employment situation?
Yeah, kind of. But like I said, I was underage. It wasn't really a formal job. It was kind of like just informal training for me.
Okay.
In office management, filing, things like that. Yeah.
And what happened at 16? At some point, did this become what we're talking about here, inappropriate behavior?
The first time that I was alone with him. Yeah, the first time I was alone with him was the first time that he was inappropriate with me. And he had me give him oral, and he paid me for it. And he told me to clean myself up and not to tell anybody. I was there, I had my top down.
Wow. And how old are you at this?
Clean yourself up.
How old are you at this time?
I was 16. Favors for diversion, favors to pay a fine off, take care of a ticket. I mean, various things. In the chambers, somewhere in the courthouse, there's rooms all over the courthouse that I've been taken to over the years. I've met him like at the strip job in Whitesburg, different places of residence. It just escalated from there. It went to having sex parties and getting high with them, doing performances with other women, they would have other men have sex with us on watch. And that continued up until I started going to jail and stuff, and they sent me off to rehab at the age of 20 after my mom died. He just started introducing me to his friends, and like it was just made very clear that like that's where my value was.
Were you getting paid all the time for this?
Stuff didn't matter.
Was
what?
Was he paying? You said the first time he threw money at you.
Is that the nature of the relationship?
He paid for it. He paid for it, yeah, throughout up until I started getting in trouble, and then it became about my court cases.
When you group them together, why do you group them together as a they? Like, what type of people are we talking about?
The higher ups of Letcher County. It's the other attorneys, the people who work in the jail. It's the whole system, courthouse, basement to roof.
And
pretty much in the buildings surrounding too. There's a lot of like other attorneys and even some like doctors and stuff in town that are involved in these parties that they would have in the various things to different degrees.
Okay, you mentioned parties. Describe to me where that would take place, how it would happen. Again, without naming names, but like who would be there, how many people?
I mean, it would vary. They had different places, residences, apartments that were just like sex rooms, you know, with swings and mirrored ceilings and things like that.
Is this all
There's more than one of those.
Is this all in town? This is all done?
No, and in surrounding counties too.
What went through your mind when you heard that the sheriff had shot and killed the judge?
Because finally somebody has to look and see what they're doing here. They can't look away anymore. We have a chance to get help.
What are your thoughts about the sheriff?
He's my hero. I mean, I'm sure that he's not a perfect man. Nobody is. But he's my hero, regardless.
Remember, the sheriff is accused of murdering the judge in his chambers. He shot and killed him. We see it on the video. And she's saying that the sheriff is her hero for doing that. Now, the sheriff is the one who's going to be on trial here. And that brings us to the first question in our investigation. Are Taya Adams' allegations, you just heard them, relevant to the sheriff's trial? Right? Is there some sort of connection? Is there relevance, whether it's to the state of mind of the sheriff or relevant to what the jury will hear? Joining us now to help answer that question, Chief Public Defender for Oakland County, Michigan, Paulette Lofton, and clinical and forensic neuropsychologist and author, Dr. Judy Ho. Great to have you both here. Let me start with you, Dr. Judy Ho. When it comes to the mindset of the sheriff in taking out the judge, all of this alleged behavior and these allegations of wild sex parties, the sheriff is part of a lawsuit. He's being sued as a result of some of this sextortion that was taking place. Do you think it is going to be relevant to what the sheriff did here?
It is going to be relevant because up until this point, Vinnie, some of the more leading theories about why Sheriff Stines allegedly murdered the judge is that maybe he was having a psychotic break. The attention was on him, maybe his dysfunction, what was going on in his mind. Some of that may still apply, but now there's this other reason that perhaps he had a rationale for wanting to harm the judge, or at least to threaten the judge, because he knew of all of these alleged crimes that he was doing behind the scenes that no one was talking about openly. And so not only is that going to have a big impact on the jury's perception of the character of the defendant, it's also going to put in some other ideas and reasons for why he pulled the trigger that day. And I think that is going to be relevant in this case.
Paulette, this is such a big part of this story, but Dr. Judy Ho just said that magic word, right? The character of the victim. And I know prosecutors are going to fight tooth and nail to keep all of this out. As a matter of fact, so Paulette, what are your thoughts about the relevance, though? Because to me, it just seems like it is all part of whatever ended up manifesting itself inside the chambers that day.
I think relevance is going to be a little bit tricky. Obviously, like you just said, the prosecution is going to want to keep this out. So is this evidence relevant in the regular trial and not just as a defense? No. I think that defense may want to use this as jury nullification. Look here, the judge was a bad guy, and maybe get the jury to think, wow, this sheriff really did the county and this city a favor. The judge absolutely wouldn't allow it in for that. But when we're taking a look at his mental status, we're going to have to find out when he became aware of these allegations. Obviously, we know that he was deposed in the week leading up to this event. So we know that he had some knowledge of some complaints of women or other people in the community, but how much did he know? Did all of a sudden on this particular day, he find out much more information and he snapped and he had this emotional disturbance? I think then it would absolutely be relevant. A doctor could testify and explain, the examination that he or she performed on the sheriff. And the sheriff would obviously be telling this doctor what pushed him over the edge to make him decide that this was the only action he could take on that day. So I think it's going to be relevant from that perspective, but any other way to bring it in, I think the prosecution is going to have a very, very strong objection.
Dr. Judy Ho, I had an opportunity to speak with the sheriff's attorney, and while he couldn't tell us everything, obviously, what I sort of gathered from what he was telling me is that this defense, which is a mental health defense, is somehow grounded in some level of fact. I'm interested in your opinion on, can someone be delusional to a certain extent, but that delusion is grounded in some level of fact, and those facts would be relevant to what was going on in Letcher County with all these women and these charges and the lawsuit. Does that happen? Do people somehow break from reality as a result of something that is real?
It's a very good question, Vinny. And when we talk about delusions, it's not the same as hallucinations, which is basically, for example, imagining that someone's in the room in front of you when there's absolutely no one in the room. There's voices talking, there's no one there. Delusions are grounded in some aspect of reality, and then the rest of it is on a spectrum. So a delusion would be, oh, I see somebody looking at me. I think that person might be the FBI and they're investigating me for some reason, right? But the person is there and the person is looking at them. So that's what I mean by all delusions are still somewhat grounded in one aspect of reality, but where it goes into the slope and being diagnosed as a mental disorder is, well, now the break from reality is so significant that it doesn't matter where the grounding started. It's so far away from any evidence that you're no longer rooted in reality. I think that's going to be a key investigation in this case, and what they're going to have to pull apart during the whole deliberations and the entire trial is this actually still grounded in reality to a large extent, or was there a nugget of truth and then it just blew up in Mickey Stines' mind that led to that tragic day?
Yeah, that's what makes this such a difficult situation to get our arms around, because there is absolutely some mental breakdown, but there's also something terrible happening in Letcher County. All right, Paulette Lofton, Dr. Judy Ho staying with us. Coming up next, what's behind the latest legal moves by the prosecution?
There's no way he didn't know. Everybody knows.
She kisses Joy and says, "Sorry, I love you."
Was this an accident or murder?
And that is where the truth begins to get twisted.
The Kiss and Kill murder trial. Trial coverage weekday mornings 8, 7 Central on Court TV. This week on Opening Statements.
Was it a killing sealed with a kiss? Previewing each day's proceedings in the bizarre murder trial of Samantha Krebs.
Opening Statements with Julie Grant. Mornings at 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
There's no way he didn't know. Everybody knows.
Everybody knows. It's common knowledge out there.
Mm-hmm. There are hundreds of victims. That's not an exaggeration.
That's Taya Adams, who was making allegations and saying everyone knew about this out in eastern Kentucky, Letcher County, and in the surrounding counties, about what was happening. These women being extorted for sex by people in the criminal justice system. Well, that's sort of the backdrop to another story that's going on out there, but many believe it's connected directly to the shooting of Judge Kevin Mullins by Sheriff Mickey Stines. And Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas joining us now with more details on what's happening in that case and what is going on right now in the case and the litigation involving the murder trial of the sheriff.
Well, Vinny, one of the latest developments is that the state prosecutors want a change of venue, not the defense like we sometimes normally see here at Court TV, but the prosecution wants a change of venue. Now, they made a recent filing for this change of venue, and it says in part, this case is unique in that the scene of the crime happens to be the courthouse in which the defendant is reporting for pretrial conferences, status hearings, and could potentially be tried in. Further, both the defendant, Letcher County Sheriff Sean Stines, and the deceased victim, Letcher County District Court Judge Kevin Mullins, are both public officials who were voted upon by the residents of Letcher County to serve in their respective roles. Every eligible voter in Letcher County either had a reason to vote for or against the defendant and the victim at one time. The preconceived opinions as to the character and ability of these two men is likely to irreconcilably prejudice both the Commonwealth and the defendant if this trial takes place in Letcher County. Looking beyond any preconceived prejudice that Letcher Countyans may have, the county has been inundated with media attention ranging from local to national news sources. The pre-established opinions of the deceased victim and the defendant, accompanied by the mass pretrial publicity, has prejudiced both parties and would likely prevent a fair trial from taking place in Letcher County. Now, Vinny, of course, the defense filed their response opposing the request for a change of venue. It says in part, the Commonwealth cites a select group of local outlets to support its motion. However, this case is one that has garnered international coverage, much less national, much less state attention. Court TV has aired each hearing live and in progress. Every state news outlet has covered this case. Social media is overrun with posts. In short, the media coverage of this case and the background are everywhere. The defendant agrees that there has been media attention in this case. However, the media reports begin almost every time with the video of the defendant shooting the deceased. The only party that has a compelling case for removal is Mickey Stines. And as this court has stated, this is not a whodunit. And Vinny, that change of venue motion has yet to be decided upon, but something else that's new. The state wants a second mental evaluation done on the former sheriff, Mickey Stines. Now remember, they already did one, and that one came after both sides agreed to having that initial mental evaluation done due to the crazy backlog they have when they have to do these mental evaluations. Take a listen to this.
The Commonwealth is entitled to have their expert evaluate Mr. Stines. And out of expediency, I believe that Mr. Steele and I would ask for an order for that evaluation to go ahead and take place.
Now, of course, again, the defense filed their documents opposing this request for a second evaluation. And it says in part, to mandate the defendant to once again be subjected to an invasive examination is without statutory basis. The Commonwealth is free to enlist an expert to review the prior examination and espouse a contrasting view. Mr. Stines has already submitted to the same testing that is used in capital trials by the Commonwealth throughout the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth has the existing KCPC report, medical records, and other discovery already available for its expert to base his or her opinion upon. In this case, the initial KCPC evaluation is sufficient, and there is no evidence to suggest that a second evaluation is warranted other than the desire for a second opinion. Now, Vinny, I want to go back to that initial mental evaluation. The defense filed a motion to unseal that mental evaluation, and as of tonight, sitting here now, that evaluation is still sealed, Vinny.
Cody, thanks so much. I know you're going to stick around. You have some more for us, but this brings us to the next question in our investigation. What's behind the latest legal moves by the prosecution? And when I say that, what's really behind these moves? Trying to get it moved from Letcher County and asking for a second opinion. Here to help with our investigation, Chief Public Defender, Oakland County, Michigan, Paulette Lofton, and clinical and forensic neuropsychologist and author, Dr. Judy Ho. Paulette, I'll begin with you. Prosecutors want it moved out of Letcher County. What's really going on here? Could it be that everyone in Letcher County, like Taya Adams was saying, knows about all of this corrupt behavior and they don't want to put this case in front of them?
Oh, I think that's absolutely what's happening here. It hardly ever happens that the prosecution asks for a change of venue. It is always us defense attorneys pounding our fists saying our client cannot get a fair trial here. So first, hearing that it's the prosecution making this motion, that raises some eyebrows in my mind. And I think you're right. If we are believing Taya Adams, that there are hundreds or even thousands of victims and that everyone in town, especially if they've been in the legal system, knows how dirty that this game is and how this judge was a part of it, maybe the prosecution is a little fearful that the jury may not examine the case as if they had, loving thoughts of this judge, and maybe there will be a problem for the prosecution. So I think you're right. I think that they know that they may not get a fair shake here.
Now, Dr. Judy Ho, prosecutors, again, it's prosecutors, want a second mental health evaluation from this neutral expert. The first one, we don't know what the results are, but my guess is it probably is pretty favorable to the defense because they want it released and prosecutors want a do-over.
Right. And Vinny, this probably happens more than we know, and there's a lot of different reasons for it. But if they truly believe, for example, that the first evaluation, if it is neutral, had flawed methodology, they missed some things, they can just get a rebuttal expert, basically, to talk about how flawed that was and how you should basically just throw that evaluation out. So my thought for them wanting to get their own evaluation, perhaps with a psychologist or psychiatrist that they approve of, is they want to find some way to challenge the first evaluation's results because they actually think that it holds some water. If you think that first psychological evaluation wasn't good at all, there's easier ways to challenge that by utilizing a rebuttal expert to basically rip that evaluation apart and say, we shouldn't even care about this evaluation. It says nothing and tells us nothing useful about the defendant.
Yeah, I agree. Paulette, we only have about 15 seconds left here, but again, this was like the expert, both sides, get an expert, evaluate them. Prosecutors don't like it. The defense wants it unsealed. So this looks like it's bad news again for prosecutors.
I think so, and I agree. They can hire their own expert. They do it all the time. They just review the report that they already have, and then they can rebut that expert. It is so taxing on a defendant to have to go through that long and arduous evaluation and relive every second of what they went through. I don't think that they should allow a second evaluation.
Yeah, the bottom line, it's like we're in Oppositeville where it looks like the prosecution is doing all the things that the defense usually does. Paulette Lofton, Dr. Judy Ho, thank you both so much. Up next, we're going to talk about the judges' chambers. How unusual is this activity in the judges' chambers? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the shooting death of Judge Kevin Mullins, an attack caught on video, but that piece of evidence only tells a small piece of the entire situation that led up to that fatal moment. Here's the story.
In a shocking and brazen attack that stunned Kentucky, Judge Kevin Mullins was gunned down, leaving the community reeling in disbelief. Known for his steady hand on the bench and decades of judicial experience, Mullins had commanded respect and admiration across the state. The shooting occurred in broad daylight, shattering the calm of a quiet town as law enforcement scrambled to the scene. Witnesses described chaos, screams, the thunder of gunfire, and the sudden terrifying realization that a public servant had been targeted. Authorities quickly cordoned off the area, and then the county's top law enforcement official, Sheriff Mickey Stines, unholstered his weapon and surrendered. The sheriff was caught on camera killing the judge, but exactly why he did it is the question the jury will have to grapple with.
This case and this story, you talk about the scene of the crime is the courthouse itself, but not just the courthouse. It's the judge's chambers. I want to bring in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Cody, let's talk about that scene, because it wasn't just the shooting. There were other things going on. Give me a rundown here of what was going on in Judge Kevin Mullins' chambers.
Yeah, Vinny, we got a number of strange or odd, non-traditional things going on in those chambers. And we'll start with there being a camera in his chambers. You see, we got a look of this guy walking in the chambers, but this is a camera inside the privacy of essentially what is this Judge Kevin Mullins' office. Like, he can close the door and do whatever dealings and business he has to do. But with Vinny, we do know that 18 cameras were installed at the Letcher County Courthouse after a federal sexual assault lawsuit was filed in 2022 against one of the Letcher County Sheriff deputies for sexual assault. Now, the cameras were put in at the request of the judges, the circuit court clerk, and Sheriff Mickey Stines. Now, we move on, Vinny, to another shot of his office. We see all these people in here. We see Stines to the right. We see Judge Kevin Mullins sitting back in his chair. This is just like a casual hangout spot, as if they were just in somebody's basement just sitting around. Now, this video is from the day of the shooting, of course, before the shooting. Many of these guys have been interviewed, since the shooting has happened by police, and they have said that them gathering in these chambers is not unusual. They used to do, or they did this all the time before the shooting happened. So not out of the ordinary for them, but we still see, how casual this is to be in the judge of the county's, or the judge of the town's chambers. Now we move along, Vinny, still in the chambers. We zoom in here on Judge Kevin Mullins. We see him smoking inside. You see him taking a drag of a cigarette right there as he's laughing and talking to everyone else. But smoking inside his chambers, let alone inside a building, really, Vinny, in the 21st century, we haven't seen that in decades. There's no smoking signs everywhere, especially on the government official buildings like this one. Now we move along talking about those sexual assault allegations, Vinny. And what I want to play for you now, this is audio from one of the alleged victims of Judge Mullins talking about videos that she saw going on in these chambers. Take a listen.
But he does have some videotapes of some stuff in the judge's chambers.
What kind of stuff?
Just with girls, sexual and stuff.
What describe? Have you seen the videos?
I've seen one partly, and just him having sex with girls for their be able to get out of jail.
Who was having sex?
Ben and just some higher ups up there.
Who?
The judge and.
Now you saw the video.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, you heard her mention there, Vinny, the name Ben. She's referring to this guy here on the screen, Ben Fields. And as I was referring to earlier, he's the former Letcher County deputy who pleaded guilty to raping a woman who was on house arrest that he was assigned to monitor. And Stines is also being sued by this accuser for negligent hiring, training, and the supervision of Deputy Fields. And Vinny, that lastly brings us to ultimately why we're here talking here tonight, the shooting of the judge by Sheriff Mickey Stines going down in those chambers. Became this national, international story. How could the sheriff of a town shoot the judge of a town that he's known for years? Vinny, this is just a number of strange things that we know of that happened in these chambers. Not to say there's any more things that were happening in those chambers, but definitely a running list going on.
Yeah, what a list. Cody Thomas, thanks so much. And this list brings us to the next question in our investigation. How unusual is this activity in the judge's chambers? Like, all of it, starting with the fact that there's a camera in there. Let's bring in some guests to help us through this. Here to help us is attorney Ned Pillersdorf, who's representing the woman suing Sheriff Mickey Stines, now former Sheriff Mickey Stines. Also joining us, former Judge Larry Seidlin out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Great to have you both here. Judge Larry, I got to ask you, you're a judge, you're in chambers. How unusual is this type of behavior, conduct, and things happening inside of a judicial chambers?
It's a circus, and unfortunately, the judge said in my chamber, he said they allowed me to have because I was on.
Judge Larry, we're having trouble with your audio. Let's see if we can fix. Maybe we get Judge Larry on the phone real quickly. But let's bring in Ned Pillersdorf. Ned, you're an attorney. I'm sure you've met with judges in chambers through the years. You know the ins and outs of this story. I mean, how unusual is this? Or is this the norm in Kentucky? Do we have Ned?
Yeah, I'm here. Are you asking me?
Yes, Ned. How unusual is all of this?
Of course, it's extremely unusual. Judges smoking in chambers, the informal way this happens. I think the other point is it is quite unusual to have a camera in chambers. Of course, there's cameras in the courtroom, and there's generally cameras in a conference room a judge has. The fact that they install the camera in the chambers, I've learned that's a result of the lawsuit that we filed.
So how do you, I'm trying to wrap my head around this because the allegations are so wild in what was taking place in the system that is supposed to administer justice. Were you personally shocked and surprised as you peel back the layers and learned more and more about what was taking place?
Obviously shocked. I don't think this has ever happened in history where we've had judges killed, but we've never had judges killed by the sheriff in the chambers. You know, what's really going on, what's changed, Vinnie, in the last 44 years that I've been practicing law in Appalachian courts is you got so many women are now in court. 44 years ago, you never saw a woman hardly charged. And now I'd say half of my clients are women charged with drugs. They're young women, and they're targets of sexual exploitation. You know, there's two reasons I filed the lawsuit. One, to help the people in front of me. The other is I don't think that sexual exploitation that occurred in Letcher County is isolated. And it's just, we have the ankle bracelet situation. That's pretty unregulated. And the fact that we've had all these allegations of women being abused in the court system is not surprising. There's so many women, and frankly, the only way we can really get them out of jail is put them in a drug rehab, put them on an ankle bracelet situation, or maybe drug court. But that's what's so different about Kentucky courts from even 20 years ago. It's all young women, and my job is to try to get them out, get them with their kids, but they're easy prey. They're easy prey, and I'm hoping that the good news that come out of this awful tragedy is that people who administer these programs are more sensitive to the fact that how these women can be so sexually exploited as we've alleged in the lawsuit, and I think is going on elsewhere.
Absolutely. Judge Larry, we've got you back. Give us some context and perspective as being someone who had his own chambers and, you know, went there day to day to work as a judge. How unusual is what we've seen in Judge Kevin Mullins' chambers?
Well, in my chambers, for the judges, they put in panic buttons. If you looked like you were in trouble, safety-wise, you press the button and the deputies would appear with their guns. The chambers was like a living room, but I always kept my door open so my secretary, my judicial assistant, could see and hear what's going on. I always worried about these kinds of allegations. All the judges did. And this judge was a judge of limited jurisdiction. He was, in Florida, he'd be called a county court judge. And he was way too stretched out on this stuff. And there's allegations going on here. A judge is like a god in that courtroom. You could decide the individual's fate, whether they're going to go to jail or be free, whether in a civil case, whether they're going to have bread or you're bankrupting them. He has all these decisions to make, and these people in front of him are vulnerable. And unfortunately, this place where he was, it was polluted, and people were vulnerable, and these people with power took advantage of it. They exploited some innocent people, and this good lawyer represented and does represent one of the ladies that was exploited. The system has to be cleansed in that area. And it's an amazing statement, as your lawyers before said, that the prosecutor wants to move the case out of that jurisdiction.
That just does not happen. All right, Judge Larry and Ned Pillersdorf staying with us. Still to come. Will these allegations of misconduct ever be investigated?
I had a lot of really negative experiences with a lot of people from that courthouse.
She kisses Joy and says, sorry, I love you.
Was this an accident or murder?
And that is where the truth begins to get twisted.
The Kiss and Kill murder trial. Trial coverage weekday mornings 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinnie Politan. Weeknights at 8, 7 Central. Only on Court TV.
I've seen Judge Mullins have sex with a girl.
Who was the girl?
I don't know. Because I don't know a lot of people from over there.
Where was it at?
In his office, in the judge's chambers.
Is that the same place that you were meeting Ben? Is that how you know it was the judge's chambers?
Yeah.
And this was Judge who?
Mullins.
Allegations of this sexual misconduct taking place in the judge's chambers. One deputy was criminally prosecuted for it, lost his job, lost his career. But how widespread is this issue and this problem in Kentucky and in Letcher County? Take a listen to Taya Adams, who was on this program talking about it. Once again, the allegations she's making have not been independently verified by Court TV, but they are part of the story here. Take a listen.
It wasn't just him. There was other attorneys involved, and the county attorney, Harold Bowling, the one that was over my child support. The case that I am on parole on until 2099, he was really bad with me too. I had a lot of really negative experiences with a lot of people from that courthouse.
Explain it from your viewpoint. If you're a 16-year-old girl and this is happening to you, why does it continue to happen? Why don't you say something or do something about it?
We were groomed for that. They taught us that that's what we were there for. It was so normal. And like the sex part of it, that is really the least of the problems here in Letcher County. It's the way they abuse their power and the things that they do to men and women alike and families and innocent children just to keep their secrets. We are still in danger. We are suffering from retaliation. There's been people who have lost their life over this. We need help. We need help from the outside. We need attorneys. We need people. We just need help.
Once again, no one has been charged. No one has been implicated in any of this. These are allegations being made by Taya Adams, but the allegations themselves are an important part of this story that we are covering. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation. Will these allegations of misconduct ever be investigated? Will anything come of them? What is going on here in Kentucky? Here to help with our investigation is attorney Ned Pillersdorf, who's representing a woman who was a victim and is suing the sheriff. Also with us, former Judge Larry Seidlin. Let me ask you, Ned, what is happening in Kentucky if you've got women like Taya Adams coming forward and saying how widespread it is and saying that everybody knows about it, but everyone's afraid of the higher ups, so no one is saying anything? Is this going to be investigated? Where do you think it goes from here now with the shooting of the judge, with a spotlight being placed on Letcher County and Kentucky?
Yeah, I don't know if the allegations Ms. Adams is saying are true or not, but one thing she is saying is true is this is, in my opinion, widespread. You have to understand the mindset. If you're in an ankle bracelet program or even a drug court, you know a simple phone call to the judge and you're back in jail. And these women believe that if they say, wait a minute, I'm being sexually exploited, I really didn't do this, their mindset is they won't be believed. And that's why it's such a coercive situation for the women on ankle bracelets, drug court. And you have to keep in mind, many of these women are terribly drug addicted. We have a terrible situation of methamphetamine. I think I've had 4 clients in the last year who have died of drug overdoses, one of whom is actually involved in the Stines lawsuit. So these women come from a mindset, they feel powerless. And while I have no idea if Ms. Adams is saying is true or not, I have no idea, and this is not just Letcher County, that with the influx of women in Appalachian courts, I really worry about these women. It's so easy to exploit them. You know, $400 a month is an ankle bracelet. Sometimes they got to scrape by to get that $400. And if it comes to them, well, let's have a little sexual experiment here, sexual encounter. You don't have to pay the $400. I'm concerned this happens a lot more than we realize.
Yeah, Judge Larry, how do you handle, if it's the system itself that is corrupt here, who's going to come in and do this investigation? Who needs to clean things up if the problem is potentially the system itself?
You need an outside prosecutor or a commission to come in and evaluate what's going on. But when these people play dumb, it's baloney. It's not true. As a judge, I knew everything that was going on in that building. As someone enters the building and goes on the elevator, I got people running and telling me this and that because they want to curry favor with the captains of the ships. So they tell us everything. You remember Michael Douglas in Wall Street? He said, I want to know who's sleeping with who. So when they play dumb and they play innocent, these higher ups, they know what's going on. They just don't want to get involved. They don't want to put themselves out there. You need outside folks, outside this community to go in and clean it up. And it can be cleaned up because there's plenty of jurisdictions that are running a clean, quality ship. But some of these judges, and we had it in our place, in our county. I was vice president of judges for the state of Florida. You need to have good, quality people taking the bench. So some of these judges, as kids, as college students, as law school people, they're not really looking like Brad Pitt. They weren't all that popular, and now they have all this power. It's called black robe fever, and some of them have abused it, and they've hurt innocent people. So we have bodies that do look at this stuff, but in this area of Kentucky, they weren't overseeing it. It fell by the wayside. They got to go in there and clean the joint up, and they can do it.
They can. Big thank you to Ned Pillersdorf and Judge Larry Seidlin. Appreciate it. Have you back soon. Something rotten has been happening in Letcher County, Kentucky, and when a prosecutor wants the murder trial for a local judge moved out of that county, it tells me they have a problem with the people of that county. Perhaps there's a reason they might be skeptical of the higher-ups. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.